Hello there, and welcome to All About Earth, the place where science drifts softly into wonder, and curiosity hums low like wind over stone. Wherever you are, night wrapped around your window or morning slipping across your room, thank you for being here. Tonight, let's wander into an idea that sounds a little poetic, and maybe a little sad. The idea that Earth has a terrible memory. Our planet is about 4.6 billion years old, a veteran of countless cataclysms, a sphere that's seen oceans born and buried, mountains raised and erased, continents assembled and forgotten, and yet of all that vast history, more than 80% is missing, vanished, rewritten, dissolved. It's strange, isn't it, to live on a world that forgets itself. If Earth were a book, most of its pages would be gone, torn out, soaked through, or rewritten in new ink. The oldest chapters, the ones that tell how it all began, have been folded under by time itself. What remains are fragments. A sentence here and a zircon crystal, a paragraph locked in ancient rock. The rest has been recycled into the crust, melted down and returned blank. You can picture it. A planet as a restless editor, always revising. Oceans sweep across continents, then retreat. Mountains crumble into sand, then rise again elsewhere. The planet keeps rewriting its story until even it can't remember the original plot. So tonight, we ask a gentle question. What kind of world loses its own past? And what does that mean for those of us trying to read it? Maybe, before we go looking for answers, we can simply rest with the mystery. Take a breath wherever you are. Imagine Earth not as the solid, steady thing beneath your feet, but as a shifting dream, a dream that wakes, forgets, and dreams again. Beneath every field, every ocean floor, there are memories crushed into silence, lost coastlines, vanished mountains, cities of stone that never had a name. Sometimes late at night, I like to imagine the planet whispering to itself, "I don't remember," and somehow that makes it feel more alive, because forgetting isn't failure, it's how Earth renews. Every erasure makes room for something new, a river, a forest, a species, a civilization. The world forgets so that it can keep beginning again. So as you listen tonight, curled beneath your blanket, eyes half closed, try to see the planet as a living mind, always dreaming, always losing track of its own story. Try to imagine what it remembers of you, of us, of all that has come and gone. If that thought stirs something quiet inside you, share it. Tap like, leave a small note, subscribe for the next chapter of this slow unfolding journey. Because every time we wander together, the Earth remembers just a little. Now, close your eyes. The wind outside might be older than language, older than continents. Let it remind you, even in forgetting, the planet endures. Even in silence, it keeps writing. Welcome once more to the Earth of forgetting, the planet that lost its own history, and in doing so, found 1,000 ways to begin again. Geological time. The Book of Four. If you were to open Earth like a book, you'd need a very sturdy table. It's a volume so vast it can't be read all at once. Pages the size of continents. Words written in stone, punctuation marks made of meteor craters, and fossils. And yet, here's the strangest part. Most of its pages are missing. Nearly 80% of this enormous chronicle has been erased, rewritten, or simply eaten by time itself. 4.5 billion years. That's the official age, give or take a few 100 million. To the human mind, it's an incomprehensible span, so long that we have to stack metaphors just to glimpse it. Imagine, for instance, that all of Earth's history is compressed into a single day. The planet itself forms at midnight. Life shows up around 3 or 4 in the morning. Dinosaurs? They stroll in a little after 10 p.m. Humans? We appear in the final seconds before midnight strikes again. Barely enough time to yawn, look around, and invent the internet. And yet, that's the beauty of it. A day containing an eternity still scribbled somewhere between layers of rock and dust. But not neatly. Earth is a careless librarian. It spills ink, burns chapters, and misfiles its own memories. It's been revising itself since before itself even existed. The earliest section of this planetary epic is called the Hadean, named after Hades, the underworld. A dramatic title, and deservedly so. Picture a world that's more inferno than planet, molten, unsteady, bombarded by debris left over from the formation of the solar system. The air is thick with steam and volcanic gas. The surface glows a dull, angry red. Oceans don't yet exist, or if they do, they're boiling. If Earth were a person, this would be its fever dream, the moment before consciousness when everything is noise and fire. No rocks from this era survive intact. The earliest ones have been melted, crushed, or reincorporated into newer materials. A few tiny crystals, zircons, older than anything else we've ever found, are all that remain. They're like punctuation marks from a forgotten first chapter. Small, cryptic, but proof that a story was already underway. Those zircons, just a few grains the size of sand, whisper that there may have been water already, maybe even early crust, a hint that calm and chaos were already dancing together. Then, gradually the scene shifts. The Hadean cools into the Archean roughly 4 billion years ago. If the Hadean was the prologue of fire, the Archean is the first real chapter, the one where ink meets page. Here the planet begins to settle into its rhythm, oceans deepen, clouds gather, and chemistry stumbles its way toward biology. Somewhere in those murky waters, tiny molecules start collaborating, copying themselves, and before long, the first cells appear. It's funny to imagine life in all its grandeur and complexity, starting as a microscopic accident. If you could visit that early Earth, you wouldn't find trees or animals or even plants, just a world of slime and steam. The sky is orange with haze. Lighting flickers endlessly. Volcanoes roar across the horizon. It's not exactly a vacation spot, but it's lively in its own raw way. You might say Earth was young, ambitious, and still experimenting with the whole being a planet thing. Fast forward another billion years, and we arrive at the Proterozoic, a name that sounds like a philosopher, but really means the earlier life. This is the era of patience. It lasts nearly 2 billion years, a stretch so long that most other worlds would have given up and gone cold, but Earth didn't. Beneath its calm surface, it was busy reimagining life. Microbes learned new tricks. Some discovered how to use sunlight to split water molecules, releasing oxygen as waste. A biochemical innovation that would change everything. The skies that had been orange turned gradually blue, and for the first time the planet began to breathe. If the Archean was the dawn chorus, the Proterozoic was the long inhale before the song. Continents grew older, climates wobbled between ice and warmth, and the first truly complex cells, eukaryotes, appeared. These were organisms with internal compartments, little cities inside a membrane. From them, everything that would one day crawl, swim, or think would descend. It's a chapter of subtle revolutions, written in the quiet language of chemistry. But here again, most of the text is gone. The Earth doesn't preserve its drafts. Sediments get folded, minerals are remade, whole worlds vanish under newer ones. It's like trying to reconstruct a novel from a handful of torn pages and smudged ink. Scientists, in a way, are Earth's archaeologists of memory, reconstructing meaning from whispers. Each rock they study is a paragraph in a language that was never meant to last. Then, around 540 million years ago, the book suddenly explodes with color. Life goes wild. This is the Phanerozoic, meaning visible life, the most vivid and legible part of Earth's story. It begins with the Cambrian, when animals burst into complexity almost overnight. Shells, teeth, spines, eyes, evolution's first big costume party. The oceans teem with trilobites and strange alien creatures. For the first time, the fossil record feels like a photo album instead of abstract art. From there, the book picks up speed. Fish learn to swim elegantly. Plants creep onto land. Insects take to the air. Amphibians emerge, then reptiles, then dinosaurs. It's as if nature suddenly found its penmanship. The story fills with drama, mass extinctions, recoveries, evolutionary experiments that fail or flourish. The pages turn faster and faster, each era distinct but connected like chapters in an epic poem. The Paleozoic gives way to the Mesozoic, the age of dinosaurs, of giants that ruled for more than 150 million years. If the Earth had a sense of humor, this would be its blockbuster chapter, full of spectacle, sound effects, and inevitable tragedy. The curtain falls, literally with a meteor and a long winter. The dinosaurs exit, the mammals bow in. Then comes the Cenozoic, the new life era, our current age. It begins with small creatures scurrying through ferns and ends with cities glittering under satellites. Somewhere in the middle, apes descend from trees and start drawing maps, telling stories and eventually asking what it all means. And yet, through all this richness, most of the earlier text is gone. The Hadean and Archean chapters exist only as rumour. Even large stretches of the Proterozoic are nearly blank, overwritten by newer layers. Only the last 500 million years, roughly 10% of the book, can be read with any clarity. The rest is guesswork. To geologists, this incompleteness isn't discouraging. It's endearing. The Earth's forgetfulness is what makes it alive. A perfect record would mean nothing ever changed. Instead, our planet erases as it writes, creating an eternal palimpsest, a manuscript written, erased and written over again. Every rock, every grain of sand, is a word recycled from a previous draft. To navigate that vast, damaged manuscript, scientists divide time into chapters and subchapters. These are called eons, eras, periods, epochs, and ages. Each name, each boundary, marks a turning point, a change in climate, chemistry, or life itself. It's like the table of contents for a cosmic autobiography. At the broadest level, there are 4 great eons: Hadean, Archean, Proterozoic, and Phanerozoic. Within them lie eras like the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. Each era contains periods: the Cambrian, Jurassic, Quaternary, and so on. Each one is seen in the drama. The names sound arcane, but they're really love letters to change. They remind us that time doesn't flow smoothly. It leaps, pauses, collapses, begins again. Think of the scale for a moment. A human lifetime, if you're lucky, might span a century. A civilization lasts a few thousand years. A species, perhaps a few million. But an eon, that's hundreds of millions of years. So long that continents themselves grow weary and change shape. So long that stars wink out and are replaced. Geological time isn't measured in heartbeat. It's measured in the slow pulse of minerals, the patient turning of stone into dust and dust back into stone. When we talk about deep time, we're stepping outside our normal sense of existence. It's not time as humans feel it, it's time as the planet feels it. Long, cyclical, unhurried. It has no calendar, no clock, only process. To imagine it properly, you have to let go of days and years and think instead in the rhythm of mountains growing and seas retreating, of elements cooling and combining. Deep time doesn't move forward, it unfolds quietly like a time. And yet, the deeper we go, the blurrier the story becomes. The early chapters of Earth's book aren't just missing, they were never written in ink that lasts. Heat and pressure erase the words, recycle the paper, rewrite the language. Even fossils, the planet's own handwriting, are rare, appearing only in the last few chapters. For billions of years, life left no trace but chemistry. This makes Earth's memory a paradox. It forgets almost everything, yet the little it remembers is astonishingly vivid. A single rock can contain traces of an ancient ocean, a dying star, and a microbial bloom. A layer of clay can mark the day. An asteroid struck and changed everything. Every fossil, every mineral inclusion, is a fragment of a cosmic diary written in multiple languages at once. Geology, chemistry, biology, time. If you listen to geologists speak, you'll notice they talk about the planet the way poets talk about aging. Rocks remember, sediments record. The earth writes, breathes, forgets. It's not just metaphor, it's the only way to describe a mindless world that behaves as though it has a memory. And that memory, fragile as it is all we have to understand our origins. When we look at the Grand Canyon or a slice of oceanic crust, we're reading the autobiography of the world, but with most pages torn out. We fill the gaps with imagination, guided by science. We infer, deduce, dream. It's humbling to realize how thin our own presence is in that book. The entire history of humanity, the paintings, the skyscrapers, the satellites, occupies less than a millimeter at the very end of the last page. If the planet could turn its own pages, it might not even notice us yet. We are, geologically speaking, a footnote scribbled in pencil. And yet, what a gift it is to read even that much of the story. Sometimes I like to imagine Earth not as a planet, but as an old storyteller who keeps falling asleep mid-sentence. Every time it wakes, it starts again, not from memory, but from instinct. Its tale is not linear, but cyclical. Birth, transformation, silence, rebirth. The missing pages are not errors, they're pauses for breath. So when we speak of geological time, we're not just counting years, we're tracing the pulse of a living world, one that's always in conversation with itself. The Earth forgets, yes, but perhaps forgetting is part of its wisdom. In erasing, it makes room for wonder. In losing, it teaches us to look closer, to read the margins, to listen for what remains between the lines. 4.6 billion years, a story so immense, only silence can contain it. But we, fragile as we are, get to turn a few of its pages, to touch the words that survived the fire, the flood, and the forgetting. And that perhaps is the greatest privilege of all, to read a book that never stops writing itself. Plate tectonics, the housekeepers of the earth. If you listen closely, you might hear it, the deep, slow breath of the planet. Not in the rustle of trees or the sigh of wind, but beneath it all, under continents and seas. It is a hum that moves mountains, a murmur that rearranges the very shape of the world. That hum has a name, plate tectonic. It sounds technical, almost clinical, but what it describes is something profoundly alive. Plate tectonics is the movement of Earth's outer shell, a restless dance of enormous slabs of rock that drift, collide, and slide beneath one another. These slabs, tectonic plates, are the planet's way of staying in motion, its way of breathing, healing, and yes, of cleaning up after itself. Because the Earth, for all its grandeur, is a tidy creature. It doesn't like clutter. Mountains rise, but they do not last. Oceans open, but they eventually close. Every trace of yesterday is folded, buried, melted, or worn away. The planet is always editing itself, always erasing to begin again. If you could strip away the oceans and watch the continents from above over millions of years, it would look like a slow-motion ballet. Giant plates of crust glide past each other, some diving beneath their neighbors, others pulling apart to let molten rock well up from below. New land forms, old land sinks. The surface renews itself. It is a quiet chaos, a steady rearrangement of the world's face. To us, the ground feels stable, immovable. It holds our homes, our cities, our memories. But to the earth, the crust is a temporary skin, a patchwork quilt made of rock, floating on the soft, hot mantle beneath. That mantle is not liquid, not exactly, but viscous, like warm wax that can flow ever so slowly. Heat from the planet's interior rises, circulating in immense currents. Those currents push the plates around from below, a process so gradual that even an entire human civilization wouldn't notice, unless of course the plates happen to jolt and the ground shudders. That jolt is what we call an earthquake, the brief audible heartbeat of tectonics. But for the most part, the plates move silently. Some drift apart, creating rifts where molten rock emerges to form new crust. Others collide, crumpling into mountains or plunging downward into the mantle. Every movement, every fold and fracture is part of a larger pattern, a kind of geological choreography that never ends. Imagine for a moment that the continents are slow dancers at a masquerade. They drift together, separate, then meet again in new configurations. Once, long before humanity appeared, nearly all the continents were joined into a single vast landmass called Pangaea. It was not the first supercontinent, nor would it be the last, but it was a masterpiece of planetary design. One body surrounded by one ocean, the world's land fused together like puzzle pieces finally at rest. But rest never lasts long on Earth. Heat builds beneath the surface. Tension grows. Cracks form. Pangaea split apart, its fragments drifting away to become the continents we know today. North America, Africa, Asia, Australia, all born from that grand separation. Every mountain, every island, every trench in the sea tells a fragment of this ongoing story. The Himalayas rise where India presses into Asia, the Andes where South America rides above an oceanic plate, diving beneath it, the mid-Atlantic ridge, that long scar under the sea, marks where two plates pull apart, letting new crust emerge like fresh skin over a wound. And yet, as the planet builds, it also destroys. That's the dual nature of tectonics. It creates and erases in the same motion. Where one plate sinks beneath another, rock melts and recycles. What was once surface becomes depth. What was once mountain becomes magma. In time, that magma may rise again somewhere else, cool and harden into new land. The cycle is complete. It is, in every sense, a planetary housekeeping system. Mountains are dramatic, yes, but they are also temporary. They grow, crumble, and vanish, their stones carried by rivers to the sea. The ocean floors themselves, wide and ancient as they seem, are in fact among the youngest parts of the earth. They are constantly being created at ridges and consumed at subduction zones. The seafloor you might stand above at a beach today will one day be dragged down into the depths, melted, and forgotten. That's the secret of plate tectonics. It keeps the world young. Without it, the Earth's crust would have grown thick and immobile long ago, its surface worn smooth by time. There would be no mountains, no ocean basins, no continents shifting like ideas in motion. The planet would be geologically dead, a static world of memory frozen in place. But Earth refuses to sit still. It prefers impermanence. There's something poetic in that. A planet that survives by letting go of its past. Every few 100 million years, the face of the Earth is remade. Continents gather and scatter, mountains rise and fall, oceans open and close. The landscape before you is a recent revision in a manuscript, billions of years old, the latest paragraph in a story that never stops rewriting itself. If Earth had a mind, you might imagine it whispering to itself as it moves. Clean up, make space, begin again, because each collision, each erasure, serves a purpose. When plates converge, they recycle materials deep into the mantle, refreshing the chemistry of the crust. Volcanoes, born from that same movement, release gases that help regulate the atmosphere. The shifting crust shapes climate, distributes nutrients, and even guides the evolution of life. Without tectonics, Earth's surface would stagnate. Its oceans might dry, its air grow thin. Instead, motion keeps everything balanced, dynamic, alive. It's ironic, then, that the same process that gives us mountains also steals them away. Even the grandest peaks are ephemeral in the long view. The Himalayas, which feel eternal to us, are just mid-sentence in the planet's story, rising now, but destined to fade. Erosion will gnaw at them grain by grain, wind and rain carving valleys where summits once stood. In tens of millions of years, they may be gone, replaced by a new range somewhere else, born of new collisions. If you could compress that timescale into minutes, you'd see mountains growing and melting like waves, continents flowing like clouds, the surface of the planet rearranging itself endlessly. It's a kind of geological reincarnation. Nothing truly disappears, it just changes form. The continents themselves are like memory foam. They hold impressions for a while, then reshape. You can still trace the faint scars of old collisions buried deep in the rock. In some mountain ranges, you'll find fossilized ocean shells, thousands of meters above sea level, remnants of ancient seabeds lifted skyward. Elsewhere, you'll find entire chains of volcanoes like the Pacific Ring of Fire marking where plates dive beneath others. These are the wrinkles and folds of a planet that never stops moving. What's astonishing is how this slow, ceaseless motion erases nearly everything that came before. It's one of the reasons we know so little about Earth's earliest history. The crust from those ancient times has been recycled, subducted, or reshaped beyond recognition. The planet keeps cleaning its surface, erasing clues, rewriting its own geology. If the Earth kept a diary, it would be perpetually rewritten in disappearing ink. And yet, in that forgetfulness lies its genius. The same process that hides its past gives us the world we live in. The shifting plates have sculpted continents, guided oceans, and even influenced where species evolve. They've written the outlines of every map, drawn the shorelines, and set the stage for everything from coral reefs to mountain villages. Tectonics is both artist and janitor, creating beauty and then sweeping it away. To imagine this more vividly, think of the plates as slow, thoughtful dancers in a cosmic waltz. They move not with speed, but with purpose, one gliding beneath another, one retreating, one advancing. When they press together, mountains rise like applause. When they part, oceans open in silence. The steps are measured, patient, almost meditative, and through their movement, the world remains alive. But if the plates are dancers, then the Earth's mantle is the orchestra, deep invisible, providing the rhythm. The music is made of heat and gravity, pressure and time. You can't hear it, but its tempo governs everything above. It's what keeps the continents drifting, the volcanoes breathing, the surface renewing. Every mountain range is, in a sense, a temporary sculpture formed from collision, worn by erosion, and eventually dismantled by the same forces that built it. The Alps, the Rockies, the Andes, all part of a cycle of making and unmaking. Even the continents themselves will one day fuse again into another supercontinent, as they have done before, and begin the dance anew. So when you stand on a mountain ridge, staring at layers of rock, stacked like the pages of an ancient book, you're looking at both history and its erasure. Each layer is a record of motion, once seabed, then desert, then summit. The Earth has rearranged the story so many times that the original setting is gone, replaced by something entirely new. And yet the story continues, written in stone that was once water, once magma, once air. It's easy to forget that this immense dynamic system operates without intent. There is no plan, no guiding hand, just physics, heat, gravity, density, but the result is astonishingly elegant, almost poetic. The Earth doesn't need a reason to renew itself. It simply does. In doing so, it maintains balance, recycling old crust, regulating carbon, redistributing life's resources. And perhaps, if you let yourself drift into imagination, you might see the planet as an artist cleaning her studio, tidying up between masterpieces. She wipes the canvas clean, not out of forgetfulness, but to make space for something new. The mountain becomes sand, the sand becomes stone, the stone becomes mountain again. Creation, destruction, creation, on and on, the same eternal rhythm. In this way, tectonics is not just a geological mechanism, it's a philosophy of renewal. It's the Earth's way of saying that nothing is ever truly gone, only transformed. Even forgetting is an act of creation. So tonight, as you rest, maybe curled up, under the quiet hum of your own small corner of the crust, remember that beneath you, the plates are still moving. Slowly, silently, with patience beyond comprehension. They are the planet's housekeepers, tidying up the old, setting the stage for the new, turning chaos into continuity. The world you know, the continents, the mountains, the very ground under your feet is not permanent. It is a passing arrangement in a long, ongoing dance. The Earth forgets, yes, but only so that it can begin again. And somewhere deep below in that vast unseen darkness, it whispers to itself, clean up, begin anew, keep moving, oceanic subduction, the seas that swallow memory. If the continents are Earth's storytellers, writing their tales in the language of rock and fossil, then the oceans are its editors, patient, powerful, and merciless. They do not preserve, they erase. Every ripple, every current, every quiet descent into the deep is part of the same endless ritual, the swallowing of history. The ocean is not only a body of water, it is a memory sink, a vast blue amnesia that keeps the planet young by forgetting what came before. The surface of the sea feels eternal when you look across it, blue stretching into forever, an illusion of permanence. But beneath that calm lies a system of renewal, so relentless that it has erased nearly all trace of its own past. The ocean floor, the cradle of countless lives, is itself astonishingly young. No rock beneath the sea is older than about 200 million years, barely a sliver, compared to Earth's 4.6 billion year lifespan. The continents remember deep time. The oceans do not. They are the planet's moving mouth, swallowing its own pages and rewriting them again and again. To understand why the oceans forget, you have to imagine the Earth not as a solid sphere, but as a breathing organism. Its surface shifts, stretches and sinks. Beneath that surface, The mantle, a vast layer of hot plastic rock, flows with slow, steady convection. The ocean floor, made of dense basaltic crust, is born in a line of fire at mid-ocean ridges, where molten rock rises and cools. But the story doesn't end with creation. It never does on this planet, because what the ridges give, the trenches take away. At the edges of oceans, the seafloor bends and dives, descending into the deep mantle in a process called subduction. It's a beautiful, terrifying idea. The surface of the world turning inward, vanishing into its own depth. Imagine an immense slab of the oceanic crust sliding under a continent, pushed down by the slow pressure of the planet's own heartbeat. It descends through darkness, carrying with it sediments, minerals, fossils, and whispers of past worlds. As it goes deeper, the rock heats, deforms, and finally melts, merging back into the mantle that birthed it. The record is gone. The ocean, satisfied, closes its mouth. Subduction zones are the planet's secret recycling centers, where the past is consumed so that the future can be made. They are found along the edges of the Pacific, the Indian, and the Atlantic basins, long arcs of geological hunger. The Mariana Trench, for instance, is the deepest place on Earth, a crescent wound nearly 11 kilometers deep, where one plate dives beneath another. There, in blackness and silence, the ocean devours itself. It's humbling to think that the oldest ocean crust we have, just 200 million years old, is younger than the first dinosaurs, younger than most mountains. Everything before that has already been swallowed. The Pacific Ocean alone has eaten and remade itself several times over. The seafloor beneath us is a fleeting thing, a thin skin constantly renewed and erased. It's as if the ocean refuses to let its own memory harden. On land, rocks can survive billions of years, carrying traces of ancient atmospheres, lost seas, vanished continents. But under the oceans, the past rarely gets that luxury. The deep trenches are the Earth's great shredders, taking in old crust and turning it to magma. If you could follow a single patch of seafloor from its birth to its death, you'd see it rise warm and new at a mid-ocean ridge, drift outwards slowly as sediment settles on it, then after tens of millions of years approach the edge of a continent and bow down into the abyss. There, its edges would crack and groan. Water trapped in the crust would be squeezed out as it sank, fueling volcanoes on the overriding plate. Eventually the crust itself would vanish into the mantle, its minerals reborn in the fires below. The journey takes tens of millions of years. Quick, by planetary standards. A few centimeters of descent each year, a silent march into oblivion. From the surface we see only the results: volcanic arcs, deep trenches, earthquakes, and island chains. But beneath that spectacle lies an act of cosmic housekeeping. The Earth is clearing its throat, digesting its own history. There's something strangely poetic about that. A planet that keeps itself alive by consuming its past. The ocean's hunger is not malicious. It's necessary. Without subduction, the crust would grow thicker and heavier with time, smothering the planet beneath its own weight. Heat would build beneath the surface, unable to escape. Eventually the world would fall silent, locked in geological stillness. But subduction prevents that. It breaks down the old, releases the pressure, stirs the deep layers. It is forgetfulness as survival. And yet, for all its functions, subduction feels almost mythic. It's easy to imagine the trenches as mouths, vast and solemn, opening at the edges of the world. What do they swallow? Not just rock, but stories. Oceans that once teemed with life, mountain ranges long eroded, seafloors that once supported coral kingdoms. Each one vanishes with a final soundless descent. If you could stand at the lip of a subduction trench and look down, which of course you can't, you might imagine hearing the echo of the Earth's own whisper. Forget. Begin again. Even the sediments that rain down from the surface, dust from deserts, shells from plankton, microscopic skeletons of drifting life, all of it is temporary. Layer by layer, they pile up on the ocean floor, forming archives of the sea's history. But in time, those archives are taken, dragged under, and erased. What remains at the bottom of the ocean is always new. The memory of ancient seas, ancient climates, ancient lives. They all dissolve in the mantle's dark embrace. This is why the geological record is so patchy. We have fragments of continents that remember the early days of the planet, but the oceans hold no such recollection. They are like a mind that dreams every night, but wakes up each morning with no memory of what it saw. The ocean has perfected the art of living in the present. Still, traces of its appetite remain. When subducted plates melt deep below, their influence resurfaces in volcanic chains. Japan, the Andes, the Cascades, the islands of the Pacific Ring of Fire. These are the ocean's afterthoughts, the burps of a world digesting its own crust. The elements carried down, carbon, water, sulfur, emerge again through eruptions and hydrothermal vents, feeding new ecosystems and reshaping the air we breathe. Even in erasure there is renewal. You could say the ocean forgets kindly. What it destroys, it also returns in altered form. Water trapped in descending crust helps melt rock and fuels volcanoes that give rise to new land. Carbonates from the seafloor are recycled into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, sustaining the planet's climate balance. The deep forgetfulness of the ocean is not a void, but a loop, a cycle of dissolution and creation. Still, there's mystery in it. We know the outlines of subduction, but not the details of what happens in the depths. Beyond a few kilometers down, light disappears. The pressure rises beyond comprehension. Rocks behave like thick honey. Chemical reactions unfold over eons. The ocean crust, once cold and solid, becomes part of the planet's molten interior. Some of it may descend hundreds of kilometers, perhaps even reaching the boundary of the core. Down there, memory becomes magma, an old story melted into something new. Every so often, though, a fragment returns. Ancient minerals carried upward by volcanic eruptions sometimes bear the chemical fingerprints of long-lost seafloor, hints of subducted plates that vanished hundreds of millions of years ago. It's as if the ocean dreams in its sleep, and those dreams rise to the surface as sparks of volcanic light. When you think of it this way, the planet is a self-consuming storyteller. It writes its history in stone, then feeds those stones to the fire. The act of forgetting is not tragedy but transformation. The old becomes the new, memory becomes possibility. The sea's appetite ensures that the world remains in motion, that no one version of the Earth lasts forever. If you were to walk the beaches of today's continents and listen closely to the waves, you might hear the faint echo of that process. Every grain of sand that slips back into the surf may someday become part of the deep mantle, pressed into a billion-year silence before returning as lava. Every tide is a rehearsal for subduction, every shoreline a prelude to disappearance. And so the ocean remains both cradle and grave. It nurtures life on its surface while erasing its own geological childhood below. It is the world's greatest archivist and its most efficient censor. To the casual observer, the sea looks eternal. To the geologist, it is an amnesiac. Its beauty lies in that paradox, constant yet fleeting, vast yet forgetful. No one can say exactly how many times the oceans have remade themselves. Some scientists estimate dozens of complete cycles, each one a generation of seafloor born, spread and swallowed. Each time the planet starts fresh. What was once Pacific becomes Atlantic. What was once Tethys becomes Indian. The names change, the basins shift, and the memory of what came before is lost beneath kilometers of molten rock. And yet something about that endless renewal feels strangely hopeful. The ocean's forgetfulness is what keeps the world alive. The old must sink so the new can rise. It's not destruction, it's continuity in disguise. If Earth were conscious, perhaps it would envy the sea's serenity, its ability to let go so completely. The continents cling to their scars, recording every impact and upheaval. The ocean, by contrast, forgives everything. It swallows, dissolves, and begins again, endlessly patient. So next time you look out across the water, whether it's a quiet bay or the open Pacific, remember that you're looking at the planet's memory machine. Beneath that mirror-like surface lies a world of motion and loss, a slow, silent devouring that has shaped everything you see. The ocean doesn't just hold life, it edits it. It decides which parts of Earth's story will be remembered and which will be erased forever. And perhaps that's as it should be. After all, memory without forgetting is not wisdom but stagnation. The sea understands this better than any of us. It forgets in order to keep becoming. So let the continents write their histories in stone. The ocean will continue its quiet work, pulling at the edges, opening its trenches, swallowing old worlds in the dark. Down there, beneath the pressure and the heat, the past melts away, and the planet prepares for what comes next. The waves we hear are only the surface, a faint sigh of a deeper process, a blue heartbeat whispering to the sky above. Forget, begin again. I will remember through renewal. The regeneration of the crust, the earth that sheds its skin. There is a restlessness in the planet's bones, a quiet need to begin again. You can see it in the flicker of volcanoes, the crumble of mountains, the long patience of rivers dragging grains of stone toward the sea. The surface of the earth, though it feels solid and ancient beneath our feet, is in truth a fleeting thing, a skin that is constantly peeling, scarring, and renewing itself. Every inch of ground we walk upon is temporary, a page rewritten in the slow script of geology. The earth, it seems, does not cling to its past. It sheds it, lovingly and without regret. When you look at the world this way, everything becomes motion. Volcanoes erupt, pouring molten rock across the landscape, creating new crust where there was none. Rain falls and begins its lifelong labor of erosion, carving mountains into memory. Rivers carry the remains of those mountains downstream, spreading them across plains, depositing fine sediments that over time harden into fresh layers of stone. Layer upon layer, the planet rebuilds itself. Creation and destruction are not opposites here. They are partners in an endless waltz. This process, this continual regeneration of the crust, is what keeps Earth alive. It's a self-renewing tapestry, a balance between the forces that destroy and those that create. Imagine the planet as a painter who never stops working, never declares a masterpiece finished. Each eruption, each landslide, each wave that crashes on a shore adds a new stroke to the canvas, while quietly erasing the one that came before. The Earth's art is impermanent. Let's start with fire. Deep beneath the surface, magma churns and shifts, searching for escape. When it finds a weakness, a fault, a fracture, it bursts through and the planet exhales. Lava spills down slopes or fountains into the air, cooling as it meets wind or water. In that moment, new crust is born. Basalt hardens into black glass, then weathers into fertile soil. Over centuries, forests may grow atop it, rivers carve through it, and cities rise. But the crust remembers that it began in flame. Volcanoes are among Earth's most dramatic storytellers, but their language is cyclical. What they destroy in an instant, they also create anew. Islands emerge from the sea in volcanic fury, Hawaii, Iceland, countless others, and then spend millennia being worn down again by wind, rain, and the slow persistence of life itself. Each eruption writes a new chapter, but no chapter lasts. The planet's surface is a palimpsest, its stories layered and rewritten until the original ink is barely visible. And then comes the rain, the sculptor of memory. Water, soft yet relentless, grinds away at rock with infinite patience. It seeps into cracks, freezes, expands, and pries mountains apart, grain by grain. In time, the tallest peaks bow to its persistence. Rivers gather what the rain loosens, carrying the planet's eroded past toward the oceans. Along the way, they lay down sediments in valleys, deltas, and floodplains, creating new layers of potential rock. These layers, when buried and compressed, become sandstones, shales, and limestones, a fresh skin for an old world. To stand beside a river is to watch the planet reassemble itself in real time. Every grain of sand tumbling through the current was once part of a mountain. Every muddy bank is a temporary resting place in the long migration of matter from summit to sea. The Earth is constantly reorganizing its body, recycling the materials of its own past. Erosion and deposition, fire and water, they work in tandem, balancing creation and decay. It is easy to think of erosion as destruction, but it is really transformation. Mountains must fall so that plains can form. Volcanoes must erupt so that new crust can cool. The surface is a cycle of forgetting and remembering, a ceaseless exchange between what was and what will be. And through all this, the crust itself is layered like the pages of a diary. Sedimentary rocks, formed from compressed sediments, preserve snapshots of the surface at different times, the ripple marks of ancient rivers, the footprints of vanished animals, the pollen of long-dead forests. Each layer is a whisper from a different world. Yet most of these layers are doomed to fade. Pressure builds, temperatures rise, the rocks metamorphose, bending and folding, their original stories blurred into new forms. What was once sandstone becomes quartzite, limestone becomes marble. Even memory itself is melted and rewritten. The Earth's surface, then, is not so much a museum as it is a rehearsal. Everything that exists here is in the process of becoming something else. Even the continents, those grand and ancient plates, are crustal expressions of this same restlessness. They grow through volcanic additions, shrink through erosion, and change character through heat and pressure. The solid ground beneath us is alive in geological time, a creature that molts its skin every few 100 million years. You can think of this regeneration as a kind of planetary breathing. Volcanism exhales new rock, erosion inhales the old. Together they form a rhythm, a pulse that has kept the world vibrant since its beginning. The surface may look stable, but it is always being renewed from within and reshaped from above. Mountains rise like inhalations, slow and grand. Rain and wind exhale them back into dust. If you were to trace this cycle in the language of a single rock, you might find that it has lived many lives. Perhaps it began as molten magma, cooled into basalt, and then was broken apart by frost and rain. Its fragments became sand, carried downstream to rest in a quiet bay. Over time, the grains were buried, cemented, and turned into sandstone. Later, heat and pressure transformed it again into quartzite. Perhaps it was lifted once more into the light, to be worn down again. In that one stone, billions of years of renewal whisper silently to anyone patient enough to listen. It is tempting to imagine Earth as an old being, ancient, steady, unchanging. But in truth it is perpetually young, always in the act of becoming. Its wrinkles are smoothed by erosion, its scars are covered by fresh crust. Volcanoes build new land even as rain and wind erase the old. The planet is both old and newborn at every moment, a paradox of memory and renewal. And yet, a few places defy this eternal amnesia. Scattered across the continents are ancient rocks, rare survivors from the earliest chapters of Earth's story. They are the planet's oldest skin cells, remnants of a time before the world learned how to shed. Some of these ancient stones, over 3 billion years old, hold chemical clues about the first oceans, the first atmosphere, perhaps even the first stirrings of life. They are the sacred fossils of geology, the wrinkles the Earth could not smooth away. To hold one of those ancient rocks in your hand is to feel time made tangible. It is as if the planet left a few fragments of memory on purpose, reminders of where it began. These stones are relics of endurance, small resistances against the great forgetting. Everything else has been renewed, melted or worn to dust, but they persist, quiet and unassuming, as if whispering, "I remember." Still, the Earth does not dwell on its past. Its energy is forward-facing, creative. Volcanoes continue to sculpt new islands. Rivers carve canyons and lay down future stone. Glaciers grind mountains into silt. Winds carry dust across continents, building soils that will nourish new life. Even human activity, in its clumsy and dramatic way, becomes part of this endless resurfacing. Our quarries, our roads, our cities will one day erode, buried beneath new layers of sediment, folded into future mountains. The planet will reclaim them, as it always has. You could say the Earth's secret is acceptance. It understands impermanence, not as loss but as motion. Nothing is meant to last, everything is meant to change. The volcano that destroys today may create tomorrow's fertile valley. The river that erodes one shore builds another. Even decay feeds creation. There's a kind of wisdom in that, a slow geological grace. To imagine the Earth's regeneration is to imagine time as circular rather than linear. There is no end point, no final state, only cycles within cycles, transformations nested inside one another like Russian dolls of stone and fire. Mountains become sediment, sediment becomes rock, rock becomes magma, magma becomes mountain. The process is patient, inexhaustible, divine in its simplicity. And so the Earth continues to shed its skin. It does so without hesitation, Without sorrow, old layers crumble, new ones form. The surface we know is merely the current version, the present draft. In another 100 million years, this landscape will be unrecognizable. Our deserts may become seabeds, our cities fossils beneath layers of dust. The planet will move on, writing new chapters atop the ruins of the old. But perhaps that's the quiet lesson, hidden beneath all this motion, that renewal requires release. The earth cannot create without first letting go. It must melt, erode, collapse, and forget in order to bloom again. It must shed its skin to stay alive. We too are made of the same materials, born from the same cycles of rock and rain. Every atom in our bodies has been part of the Earth's crust, eroded, buried, remade, released. We are literally the dust of the planet's past selves, walking testaments to its power of transformation. When we breathe, when we grow, when we change, we echo the same rhythm that moves mountains and builds continents. So next time you stand on solid ground, remember it is not as solid as it seems. It is a page mid-turn, a canvas mid-stroke, a body mid-renewal. Beneath your feet, minerals are forming, layers are shifting, volcanoes are preparing to rise, rains are carving tomorrow's valleys. The world is alive in every grain of soil, every ripple of lava, every whisper of wind. And somewhere deep within, the earth murmurs to itself, its voice soft but certain, ancient but always new. Shed the old, keep only what must remain. Begin again. The lost continents, buried memories of the earth. The continents you know, the familiar shapes drawn on every globe and map, are not the full story. They are only the surviving fragments of a far larger dream, the scattered remains of lands that once breathed under open skies. Beneath the oceans, beneath the weight of water and time, lie the bones of forgotten continents, Zealandia, Greater Adria, and others without names. Their stories folded beneath layers of stone. The earth, ever the restless storyteller, wrote them once, read them briefly, and then buried them again. To imagine these lost continents is to imagine ghosts made of granite and clay. Some are enormous, as wide as modern Europe. Others are slivers, fragments of mountain roots and submerged plateaus. But all share a fate both tragic and beautiful. They sank, not in a single catastrophic instant, not swallowed whole by storms or floods, but slowly, gracefully, over millions of years. They drifted, fractured, tilted, and finally disappeared beneath the waves or beneath their continental siblings. They did not die, they were folded back into the planet's deep memory, hidden but not entirely gone. Take Zealandia, for instance, a continent that almost everyone forgets exists, perhaps because the Earth itself tried to forget it. It lies beneath the Southwest Pacific, a ghost continent the size of India, stretching across an area nearly two-thirds as large as Australia. Once, it was part of the great southern supercontinent Gondwana. Then, around 85 million years ago, as the crust beneath it stretched and thinned, Zealandia began to sink. Slowly, silently, the ocean crept in, drowning its plains and hills, until only the highest ridges remained above the surface. Those ridges are the islands of New Zealand today, the visible edges of a much vaster world lying just below the waves. Scientists call Zealandia a hidden continent, and the name feels almost poetic. It's not Atlantis, not the stuff of myth, but something stranger and more humbling. A real piece of the Earth's crust that simply slipped away, concealed by its own planet. Its rocks, sampled by drilling expeditions, tell of mountains, rivers, and life that once thrived in the open air. Now they rest under kilometers of seawater, dimly lit by filtered sunlight, their fossils pressed into silence. The Earth whispered to them, "Sleep now, your time is over." Then there is Greater Adria, another ghost of stone, once a lush tropical continent the size of Greenland, now buried beneath southern Europe. About 40 million years ago, it broke away from what is now North Africa and began a long, slow drift northward. For tens of millions of years, it sailed through the Tethys Ocean like a silent raft of land, covered in coral reefs and lagoons, until it met the southern edge of Europe. The collision was inevitable and catastrophic. The mountains of Italy, Greece, and the Balkans rose from that impact. Greater Adria itself was dragged under. Piece by piece, its crust pushed hundreds of kilometers deep into the mantle. Only fragments survive today, small slices of limestone and marble hidden in the Alps, the Apennines, and the Carpathians. To walk in those mountains is to tread on the roof of a buried world. The cliffs of white stone that glow in the Mediterranean sun were once the shallow seabeds of Greater Adria. They are the visible scars of a continent swallowed and repurposed. The rest of it, perhaps 90%, lies far below, compacted, folded, unrecognizable. The earth has devoured it completely. It's easy to think of continents as eternal things, vast, immovable masses that have always been there, but the truth is far more fluid, more haunting. Continents come and go. They are built, broken, drowned, and reborn. Some vanish quietly beneath the sea. Others are buried under the crush of their neighbors. What we see today, the elegant geometry of continents and oceans, is just one version of a map that's been redrawn countless times. The missing ones are not exceptions. They are part of the rule. There were others too, though their names are less familiar. Lemuria, though mostly a myth, hints at the human intuition that something must have once connected the lands of the Indian Ocean. Kerguelen, real microcontinent, now lies beneath the southern Indian Ocean, its peaks just breaking the surface as volcanic islands. Mauritia, another drowned land between Madagascar and India, hides beneath layers of volcanic rock. The list goes on, each name a faint echo of a world the planet has quietly archived. Why does the Earth erase its continents? The answer lies in its restless geology. The crust is never still. It fractures, slides, and folds as the deeper forces of the planet tug and push from below. Over millions of years, whole land masses drift apart and collide again. When they do, one often sinks beneath the other. The lighter rocks of continents float higher, but even they can be dragged down, crumpled and consumed by the deep. Once a continent begins to descend, its surface is lost forever. The mountains that rise from its collision are monuments to its burial, not its survival. You might imagine the earth as a gardener tending to its terrain, where the soil grows too thick. It turns and folds the ground, burying the old layers beneath new ones. Where the surface grows weary, it plants fresh landscapes, letting the old rest unseen. The lost continents are compost in this grand, geological garden, decayed, digested, and transformed into the materials for future worlds. And yet fragments remain, like bones protruding from the earth after rain. The geological record keeps faint traces of these vanished lands, fossils that don't quite fit the continents they're found on, mineral patterns that hint at missing neighbors, magnetic signatures that speak of ancient positions long erased. In these small details, scientists reconstruct the ghosts of continents, piecing together maps of a world that once was. When geologists first began to suspect Zealandia's existence, it was from such clues. They found rocks on New Zealand's South Island that shouldn't have been there, granite and metamorphic stone that belonged to continental crust, not oceanic gravity measurements. Magnetic surveys and seafloor mapping revealed a vast plateau, thousands of kilometers wide, hidden beneath the ocean's surface. Slowly the picture emerged, an entire continent, drowned but intact. Even its shape, an elongated mass fringed by deep basins, hinted at its former independence. And so, the map of the world expanded, not outward into space, but inward into mystery. Beneath the blue, the Earth had been hiding its past. It always did. Greater Adria, too, was discovered through persistence and imagination. For decades, geologists studying the mountains of southern Europe found pieces of rock that didn't belong, ancient limestones with tropical fossils, slabs of crust with strange magnetic patterns. By fitting these geological puzzles together, they realized these fragments once formed a single landmass. Using modern imaging techniques, scientists traced its remnants deep beneath the surface, where seismic waves slowed as they passed through buried slabs of continental rock. In that slow vibration, they heard the echo of a lost world. The thought is almost eerie that the solid ground beneath us carries the corpses of continents. Beneath every mountain range may lie the ruins of another, older one. The continents themselves rest on layers of the past, buried lands, compressed and transformed into the foundation of the present. The surface of the world is not built on bedrock, but on memory. But Earth does not mourn its losses. Its creativity depends on forgetting. Each sunken continent, becomes the seed for new landscapes above. As Greater Adria dove beneath Europe, it forced the land upward, creating the Alps and shaping the familiar terrain of Italy and Greece. As Zealandia slipped beneath the Pacific, it altered ocean currents, climate patterns, and ecosystems. The act of disappearance is never the end. It is transformation. Still, it's hard not to feel a pang of wonder for what's gone. Imagine walking across Zealandia when it still stood above the sea, forests of ferns waving in the wind, rivers cutting through ancient rock, creatures roaming a world that no longer exists. Or picture Greater Adria in its prime, its coral reefs shimmering under tropical sunlight, its shorelines alive with the hum of life. Now both lie silent beneath thousands of meters of water or rock, their landscapes folded into darkness. Perhaps this is why the idea of lost continents has always haunted human imagination. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, they are myths born from a deep intuition that the world forgets, that the sea hides more than fish and coral. These stories, in their poetic way, acknowledge the truth of the planet's impermanence. The difference is only scale. Where myth gives us a single cataclysm, geology gives us millions of years of patient submergence. The Earth doesn't lose its continents in sudden tragedy. It lets them fade gently like pages dissolving in rain. And in a sense, the Earth keeps them. Nothing is truly lost. The materials of those buried continents are still here, circulating through the planet's deep systems. Their minerals melt into new magma, rise again in volcanoes, form the bedrock of future lands. Perhaps in some distant future, Zealandia or Adria will return in new forms, reborn as parts of new continents, their old stories rewritten in stone. The planet's memory is cyclical. What it buries, it eventually reuses. Yet, for now, the oceans keep their secrets. Their silence is not emptiness. It is the sound of history held too tightly to be released. If you were to stand on the deck of a ship above the submerged plateau of Zealandia, or over the Mediterranean trench where Adria vanished, you would be floating above worlds that once saw sunlight. Somewhere below, mountains still stand, valleys still curve, though no sky has touched them in tens of millions of years. The sea is the final archive of the planet's forgotten stories. It holds them not in words or fossils, but in the pressure of its depths, in the chemistry of its waters, in the quiet hum of the tectonic heartbeat below. And perhaps that is why the ocean seems so endlessly mysterious. It is not just a realm of life, but a graveyard of worlds. When we look out across the horizon, it's comforting to think that the land beneath us is permanent, but it isn't. The continents are wanderers, each carrying the memory of others beneath their feet. We are all walking atop buried histories. Adria beneath Europe, microcontinents beneath the Indian Ocean, fragments beneath Australia. The Earth is layered with its own past, yet it never looks back. In that, the planet shows us something profound. To grow, it must bury what came before. To evolve, it must forget its former shape. The lost continents are not failures or casualties. They are sacrifices to motion, offerings to time. The Earth whispers to them as they descend, "Thank you, rest now. I will remember you in mountains and seas." And so, the world moves on. The maps we draw are temporary portraits of a restless artist. The lands we know today will one day join the buried company of Zealandia and Greater Adria, folded under, hidden away, becoming the unseen foundation of some future world. The cycle will continue, the Earth dreaming, building, forgetting, and dreaming again. When night falls and the ocean darkens into a mirror, you can almost feel it, the deep presence of those lost lands, waiting in the silence below. They are not gone. They are simply asleep. The sea hums above them, a lullaby, in endless blue, while the planet turns slowly on its axis, whispering once more to its hidden children, "Sleep well, my continents. Your memory is safe beneath my heart." Geological memory, the fading mind of the Earth. The Earth remembers, but only barely. Its memory is not like ours. No vivid scenes or ordered chronology, no dates, no faces. Its recollection is written in stone, carved into layers that shift and crumble, a language spoken in silence. Yet even this memory, vast as it seems, is incomplete. Most of it has been erased. The Earth is an old being with a fading mind, a storyteller who has lived too long and told too many tales. It remembers fragments, the last few centuries of a cosmic lifetime, while the rest drifts away into oblivion. Scientists estimate that only about 20% of Earth's surface rocks preserve any trace of its history. The remaining 80%, the overwhelming majority, has been lost, recycled, melted, or worn beyond recognition. Imagine a library where only 1 in 5 books remains, and even those are missing most of their pages. That is the library of geological memory. The rest has been burned or rewritten. And the librarian, the Earth itself, does not mourn the loss. It simply keeps writing new stories atop the ashes of the old. The rocks beneath our feet are the closest thing Earth has to recollection. Each layer of sediment, each grain of mineral, each fossilized ripple records a moment in deep time. A storm that passed, a river that changed course, a species that lived and vanished. Together they form the stratigraphic archive, a living diary of the planet's transformations. But even this diary is full of gaps, missing chapters where the pages were never written or were later destroyed. Between those gaps lie stretches of time we cannot see, entire ages that vanished without a trace. To study geology, then, is to study amnesia. Every discovery is shadowed by absence. Every rock that endures is surrounded by ghosts of rocks that did not. We can measure the isotope ratios of ancient minerals, trace magnetic reversals frozen in basalt, read the chemical signatures of vanished oceans, but we are reading fragments. What survives are the memories closest to the surface, the ones that escaped the planet's endless self-renewal. The rest is gone, dissolved back into molten forgetfulness. When we hold a piece of ancient rock in our hands, a chunk of granite, a sliver of sandstone, we are touching one of the few surviving memories of the Earth's long dream. The oldest rocks known, those from western Greenland and parts of Canada and Australia, are over 4 billion years old, survivors of an era when the planet itself was still forming. They are rare beyond measure, the geological equivalent of a single heartbeat. From the beginning of time, around them lie younger stones, billions of years younger, stacked like layers of consciousness over the faint remnants of the primeval world. And yet, these oldest rocks do not speak clearly. They are distorted, recrystallized, rewritten by the heat and pressure of eons. The words of their story have blurred, their grammar dissolved. What they tell us comes through whispers, the presence of water, the hint of continental crust, a signature of oxygen long before life breathed it. They are not memories in the human sense, but impressions, traces, ghosts. Even the planet's most ancient stones forget more than they remember. In this way, Earth resembles an aging mind, lucid in its present moments, but uncertain of its youth. It recalls its recent centuries with sharp detail, the rise and fall of ice ages, the evolution of species, the rearranging of continents, but ask it what came before, and the answers grow vague. Its deep past is smudged, overwritten by younger layers, its early life reduced to a few cryptic fragments. It has outlived the clarity of its own beginnings. This fading is not a flaw. It is the very mechanism that allows the planet to persist. The Earth renews itself by forgetting. Its crust is recycled, its surface is remade, its landscapes rewritten. Memory in stone is fragile. Because stone itself is fragile, subject to the eternal forces of pressure, heat, and transformation. The deeper a rock sinks into the earth, the more its memory fades. Sediments that once recorded rivers and winds are compressed into metamorphic stone. Their textures vanish, their fossils dissolve, their stories reduced to mineral grains. The planet, like a body, heals its scars by replacing the tissue. It cannot remember everything and remain whole. To forget is to live. The same is true for the Earth. And yet, there is something profoundly moving about this selective memory. The fragments that remain are enough to glimpse the pattern of the whole, to reconstruct, in part, the life of a planet that has remade itself countless times. From the traces of ancient zircons, we learn that liquid water existed early in Earth's history. From banded iron formations, we infer the rise of oxygen and the transformation of the atmosphere. From fossils, we trace the emergence of complexity, the rise and fall of entire ecosystems. Each clue is a surviving neuron in the Earth's vast, imperfect brain. but the absences are just as telling. The missing 80% of history is not empty. It is full of possibilities we can never recover. What strange worlds once existed in those lost eras? What climates, what oceans, what lives? The gaps remind us that the Earth's story is not ours to own. We are visitors in a narrative that forgets us even as we study it. Geological memory operates on a scale far beyond human intuition. For us, memory is linear, a thread of moments stretching from past to future. For the Earth, memory is cyclical, layered, recursive. It does not recall the past as a sequence, but as a depth, a compression of time into matter. A rock does not remember the year it was born. It remembers the conditions, the chemistry, the pressure of its making. Its history is not in words, but in structure, in crystal lattices and isotopic ratios. To read a rock is to translate physics into narrative, to turn mineral into metaphor. In that sense, geology is an act of empathy, an attempt to understand a mind that does not think like ours. The Earth forgets differently. It doesn't erase deliberately. It simply transforms. Old rocks become new ones. Old landscapes become sediments, which become mountains, which erode again into dust. The past is never truly gone. It is redistributed, scattered, remixed. Geological memory is not a collection of intact records, but a living cycle of recreation. Still, the impermanence of this memory humbles us. We like to imagine that the planet is ancient, wise, unchanging, but the truth is more fragile. If only 20% of its surface retains any record of the past, then even the Earth is vulnerable to the passage of time. It too forgets, it too moves on. The continents drift, the seas deepen, volcanoes rewrite the crust, and the traces of old worlds fade. Our sense of geological eternity is an illusion born of human brevity. To the Earth, a mountain range is temporary, a fossil fleeting, a continent ephemeral. Perhaps this is why the oldest rocks feel so sacred to geologists. They are not just data points or curiosities, they are fragments of the planet's consciousness. To hold one is to feel the weight of 4 billion years of survival, the endurance of matter through unimaginable heat and pressure. They are the Earth's memories distilled into solid form, the last surviving lines of an autobiography written in fire. But even those memories will not last forever. Over time, they too will be subducted, melted, remade. Their isotopes will mingle with new minerals. Their structure will dissolve. Their story will end. The Earth's memory resets itself continuously, keeping only what it needs for the next chapter. It is not sentiment that guides this forgetting. It is balance. Too much memory would paralyze the planet, just as too much permanence would halt its evolution. Renewal demands loss. And so, the Earth's memory fades like an old photograph, not abruptly, but gradually, beautifully. What remains is a soft blur of color and light, the suggestion of what once was. The planet does not grieve for what it forgets. It carries the essence of every moment in its ongoing motion. Each atom that once formed an ancient rock might now lie in the shell of a living creature or the dust of a mountain being born. Forgetting, in this way, is a kind of transformation, a passing of meaning from one form to another. If we think of the Earth as a consciousness, then geological memory is its dream cycle. It drifts through eras, shedding the weight of its past to awaken anew. Each new crust, each new landscape, is a fresh moment of awareness. The old dreams dissolve into magma and sediment, their essence feeding the next vision. The planet's forgetfulness is its form of sleep, and its eruptions and mountains are its awakenings. For humanity, this idea carries both humility and comfort. We are creatures who cling to memory, who build monuments to permanence, who fear being forgotten. But the Earth shows us another way. Its wisdom lies not in what it preserves, but in what it releases. Its beauty lies in impermanence. To forget is not to lose. It is to make space for the new. The planet's fading memory is not decay. It is renewal at the most fundamental scale. When we walk across ancient ground, we are walking on the threshold between remembering and forgetting. Every step rests on billions of years of vanished worlds. The dust beneath our feet is not merely soil, it is the residue of mountains, the ashes of oceans, the quiet remains of lives that the Earth has gently folded into itself. We live upon the planet's faded memories, and we too will one day join them. In this light, geological memory is both a record and a philosophy. It teaches that change is not failure, that erasure is not tragedy. It reminds us that forgetting is part of the creative process. The Earth has endured not by clinging to its past, but by letting it go, by trusting that what is essential will return in another form. Its memory is not linear or complete. It is circular, regenerative, eternal in its incompleteness. So when we look at the rocks, when we measure their ages or map their layers, we are not simply reading the planet's history, we are witnessing its art of forgetting, an art so vast and graceful that it becomes indistinguishable from creation itself. The Earth forgets, and in doing so it begins again. And if the Earth could speak, perhaps it would tell us, in its slow and patient voice, "Do not mourn what is gone. My memory fades so that I may keep living. I remember enough to go on. The rest I release." Erosion and deposition. The sleep of memory. There is a quiet rhythm in the bones of the earth, a slow breathing you can't hear but you can almost feel. Mountains rise, crumble, and rest. Rivers carry away the dust of ages. Valleys deepen, plains stretch, and the world softens its sharp edges. In this endless motion lies one of the planet's most gentle, most secretive acts: erosion and deposition, the art of forgetting, performed through the tender touch of wind, water, and time. If the Earth were a living being, and perhaps it is, then erosion would be its sleep and sediment its dreams. Through erosion, the planet closes its eyes, lets the old layers of memory dissolve, and through deposition, it tucks itself in beneath blankets of fresh sediment, resting for another chapter of its long existence. Nothing on Earth ever truly stops moving. It only slows, settles, and begins again. Even silence is motion at a different pace. Erosion is one of nature's slowest and most determined sculptors. It works not in hours or years, but in the patience of centuries and epochs. It begins invisibly with a raindrop, a gust of wind, a root splitting a crack in stone. What starts as a whisper becomes a symphony of change. Over time, these small gestures, raindrop, root, breeze, combine into a force that humbles mountains. Granite spires crumble into sand, cliffs retreat into plains, and even the hardest rock eventually yields to softness. This is the gentle violence of the world, not destruction for its own sake, but transformation, a reshaping of the old into the potential of the new. Picture for a moment a mountain range. Perhaps it stands proud and jagged under a young sun, its peaks capped with ice, its valleys raw and deep. The winds whistle between its crags, and rain traces silver lines down its slopes. 1,000 years pass, then 1,000,000. The edges soften, the summits sink, the mountain sighs and slouches toward the horizon. Its dust becomes soil, its fragments become sand. The earth is tidying up again, smoothing its wrinkles. But erosion doesn't only take away, it also gives back. The dust and sediment it steals from the highlands do not vanish. They travel, carried by rivers and streams, blown by the air, tumbled by glaciers, and settled eventually in new places. This is deposition, the quiet counterpoint to erosion, where one process erases, the other preserves. Together, they are the planet's twin hands, shaping and soothing, eroding and comforting. Imagine a river, wide and slow, carrying with it the powdered memories of faraway mountains. Grain by grain, it lays them down in a delta, where the river meets the sea. Layer upon layer, the sediment settles, forming new beds of clay, silt, and sand. With time and pressure, those layers harden into rock, sedimentary stone, the earth's most humble yet most eloquent storyteller. Within them are traces of everything that once was, pollen from ancient forests, shells from vanished seas, even the footprints of animals that walked 1,000,000 years before us. But even these records are temporary. The earth never allows any layer to sleep forever. Over eons, those same sedimentary beds may be lifted, tilted, cracked, and exposed again to the open air. The wind returns to whisper against them. The rain resumes its slow caress, and the process begins anew. Erosion, deposition, renewal. The cycle is endless, like breath. To say that erosion erases is both true and not quite true. It removes the visible surface, yes, but it also buries the memory deeper. What's washed away is not lost. It's relocated, reincarnated as part of another landscape. The mud at the bottom of a lake may once have been part of a mountain ridge. The dust on your windowsill might have drifted from the Sahara or from what was once the heart of an ancient ocean floor. The earth reuses its own past, quietly and completely. You could think of erosion as the world's editor paring down, crossing out, trimming the excess. The drafts it produces are neater, smoother, less dramatic, but more enduring. Where erosion is the editor, deposition is the archivist. Carefully stacking the rewritten pages, tucking them away in layers of sediment for future readers to discover. Every cliff of layered rock you see is an archive of the world's former selves, a geological library where time is measured not in words but in strata. If you stand before such a cliff, say the red walls of the Grand Canyon or the banded cliffs of Dorset, you are staring at time asleep. Each layer is a moment the earth has tucked under its blanket of dust. Some layers are thick and bold, recording centuries of abundance and calm seas. Others are thin and chaotic, recording floods, droughts, sudden upheavals. Together they form a lullaby of time, sung in stone. And yet, just as we dream while we sleep, the earth does too. Beneath those calm layers, slow processes continue. Water seeps through pores, minerals crystallize, fossils form, pressure and chemistry transform mud into shale, sand into sandstone, shells into limestone. These are the quiet dreams of the planet, unfolding over millions of years beneath the surface, reshaping what was once loose and transient into something firm and lasting. It's tempting to see these processes as metaphors for the mind. Just as the earth erodes and deposits, we too forget and remember. Our memories fade, soften, and are replaced by new experiences. Yet, deep within us, the sediments of our lives accumulate, compacted by time into something that endures. The planet, like us, cannot keep every detail, but it remembers in layers, the newest resting gently on the oldest, each one shaping the next. Sometimes, when we look at erosion, it feels melancholic. Mountains worn down, valleys filled, histories buried. But there's humor in it too, an irony of patience. The rain that carves canyons does not rush. The river that moves continents does so without hurry. Even the wind, that most elusive sculptor, works with confidence that time is on its side. Nothing resists forever. Everything yields eventually. It's as if the earth is gently chuckling to itself. Take your time. I've got plenty, and there is beauty in that patience. The rounded hills, the wide plains, the layered cliffs, all are works of erosion's quiet art. It doesn't carve with precision, like a chisel, but with care, like a hand smoothing a rough edge. The landscapes we love most, the meandering valleys, the rolling dunes, the fertile deltas, are the result of this slow, persistent touch. Erosion may erase, but it erases with tenderness. Deposition, meanwhile, is the earth's gesture of kindness, a promise that nothing is lost forever. The particles of eroded rock become the seeds of new land. The sediments that settle in lakes and seas are the beginnings of tomorrow's continents. Even as the surface fades, new worlds are being prepared below. The planet is never idle, never still. While one region sleeps beneath its sedimentary blanket, another stirs awake, ready to rise. If erosion is the planet's sigh, deposition is its lullaby. Together they create a rhythm of rest and renewal, a geological heartbeat that never falters. The earth breathes out its dust, then draws it in again, reshaping itself with each breath. The mountains fall asleep as plains. The plains awaken as mountains. The world dreams, forgets, and dreams again. In this dream, time is both destroyer and healer. The same forces that grind rock to sand also cradle that sand into stone. The same waters that wear away cliffs also lay down fertile deltas. There is no cruelty here, no waste. The earth does not mourn its erosion, because it knows what follows. Every loss becomes a beginning, every act of forgetting, a preparation for remembering differently. To walk along a beach is to witness the edge of this dream. Each wave brings with it fragments of faraway lands, granite from mountains, coral from reefs, glassy grains from volcanic sands. They gather and scatter with every tide, creating new shapes, new sounds, new textures. The shore is a temporary sculpture, remade every hour, but its spirit is eternal. Movement, renewal, return. Some of those grains will settle, buried beneath others. Over time, they will harden into rock, perhaps to be lifted someday into a future mountain. When that happens, erosion will begin again. The circle closes, then opens once more. The earth never stops writing itself, never stops dreaming. And perhaps, if you listen closely at night, when the wind moves softly over the hills, you can hear the earth in its sleep. The creak of stones, the whisper of shifting sand, the distant murmur of a river, all part of a planetary slumber, the slow exhalation of memory. The world is resting between chapters, letting yesterday's stories settle into tomorrow's foundations. We often imagine erosion as decay, the end of things, but to the earth it is comfort, restoration. Just as we drift into sleep to heal and forget the clutter of the day, the planet drifts into erosion and deposition to ease the burden of time. It sheds what it no longer needs, buries what has served its purpose, and dreams itself into renewal. If you could speak to the earth in this drowsy state, it might murmur something half conscious, half wise. Hush now. Don't worry. The mountains are tired. Let the rivers carry them to rest. Let the sand settle. Tomorrow there will be new shapes, new stories. In that whisper lies the essence of geological grace. The world forgets not out of neglect but out of love for change. Erosion and deposition are its slow lullabies, its rituals of rest. They are how the earth releases its old memories and prepares for new beginnings. So the next time you see a cliff, a riverbank, or a quiet desert dune, remember, you are looking at the earth, dreaming. The winds that lift the dust, the streams that carry the stones, the layers that settle one atop another, they are the planet's way of closing its eyes for a while. Every grain of sand is a word in a long, drowsy sentence. Every sedimentary layer is a blanket drawn over the past. And somewhere deep beneath your feet, beneath the layers of rock and time, the old memories sleep calm, silent, undisturbed. The earth has tucked them in with care, murmuring softly as it turns in its slumber. Rest now, my memories. The wind will keep your secrets. The rivers will sing your names. Sleep well until I need you again. Volcanoes and impacts, the sudden forgetters. There are moments when the earth does not drift gently into forgetting. There are moments when it erupts, when it shudders, convulses, and chooses to forget all at once. These are the flashes in its long dream, the sudden bursts of amnesia that remake the world in an instant. Volcanoes and meteor impacts, two forces, one born from within, the other from beyond, both united in their ability to erase, to cover, to restart. They are the Earth's moments of violent clarity, its abrupt edits in the great manuscript of time. Most of the planet's forgetfulness is slow, patient, tender. Erosion smooths, subduction swallows, deposition tucks things away like a lullaby. But volcanoes and impacts are different. They are the outbursts, the interruptions, the thunderclaps of memory loss. When they come, they do not whisper, they shout, burn, and bury. They transform the surface in hours or days, leaving behind new landscapes as if the old ones had never existed. Volcanoes are the planet's inner thoughts made visible. The earth speaking in fire, deep within its mantle, heat and pressure build, turning solid rock to molten magma. For centuries this magma waits in dark chambers, restless, murmuring beneath the crust. Then, when the pressure grows too great, the earth exhales. The ground swells, cracks, and opens. The molten heart surges upward, bursting through mountains, plains, or seafloor vents. Lava flows outward, glowing like the handwriting of creation itself. The eruption is both destruction and rebirth. It wipes away the immediate past, forests vanish beneath rivers of fire, lakes boil, valleys fill with ash. And yet from this devastation new land is born. Fresh crust, still steaming, cools into basalt, obsidian, pumice. The old world disappears, replaced by one that gleams with youth. In the geologic sense, this is the most sudden act of forgetting imaginable. The planet erases its skin in minutes, then begins again, smooth and unblemished. Some volcanic events are small and local, like fleeting thoughts. Others are cataclysmic, a full rewrite of the chapter. When the volcano Toba erupted about 75,000 years ago, it spewed so much ash into the atmosphere that the planet's temperature dropped, the sky dimmed, and the world itself seemed to pause. The eruption of Krakatoa in 1883 was heard nearly 3,000 miles away, a sound that circled the globe multiple times. Yet even these immense explosions are only echoes of greater ones: the Deccan traps of India, the Siberian traps of Russia. Vast regions once flooded by sheets of lava, hundreds of meters thick, covering millions of square kilometers. These were not single volcanoes, but convulsions of the entire planet, Earth, forgetting on a continental scale. When such eruptions occur, the land as it was ceases to exist. The old rivers, forests, and hills vanish beneath molten seas. The details of the landscape, the tiny fossils, the tracks of animals, the delicate structures of soil, are sealed away forever under basaltic blankets. The memory of that place becomes inaccessible, hidden under layers too thick and hard to breach. In that way, volcanoes are archivists of destruction. They preserve by entombing, but what they preserve is no longer reachable, no longer visible. You can think of each lava flow as a page turned. Beneath it lie the words of the last story, now locked away in stone. Sometimes, millions of years later, erosion will cut through those layers and reveal a glimpse of what lies beneath: a fossilized tree, a buried city, an ancient plain turned to rock. But for the most part, those memories are sealed. The earth has moved. And then there are the impactors, the visitors from the cold, dark beyond. If volcanoes are the planet's own emotions bursting forth, meteor impacts are the universe intruding, reminding the earth that it does not dream alone. They come without warning, from silence and speed, carrying with them the raw energy of the cosmos. When they strike, the result is instantaneous, unarguable, absolute. Imagine it: a rock no larger than a mountain, traveling faster than a bullet, slamming into the surface at tens of kilometers per second. The energy released in a single instant can rival that of all the volcanoes on Earth erupting at once. The atmosphere ignites, the crust liquefies, a crater forms, first a hole, then a wound, then a scar. Everything within hundreds of miles is vaporized. The shockwave ripples outward through the air, the ground, and the memory of the world. Impact events or geological amnesia made visible. They do not merely destroy, they overwrite. In the blink of an eye, the surface is rearranged, the strata upturned, the record fragmented. What was once a forest becomes glass. What was once ocean floor becomes crater rim. The ground forgets what it was and becomes something else entirely. The most famous of these cosmic blows is, of course, the one that struck near the Yucatan Peninsula 66 million years ago, the Chicxulub impact. It was a moment of planetary punctuation, a fiery period at the end of an era. The impact unleashed tsunamis, earthquakes, and a global storm of debris that darkened the skies. Within hours, the lush, complex world of the Cretaceous was gone, erased under ash and fire. The crater it left, more than 80 kilometers wide, is not just a wound, but a page torn from the geological book. Whatever details the rocks beneath once held are now forever sealed beneath layers of melted stone. But Chicxulub was not the first, nor will it be the last. The Earth's crust bears the marks of many such blows: Sudbury in Canada, Vredefort in South Africa, Papagai in Siberia. Most are faint now, worn smooth by time or buried under later deposits. Some have been completely erased, subducted into the mantle, forgotten even by the planet that bore them. The Earth heals quickly, geologically speaking. Its scars fade, its memory softens. To walk across the surface of an ancient impact crater is to walk across an erased sentence. The ground beneath your feet is glass and shock quartz, materials born of pressure so immense they cannot exist under ordinary circumstances. And yet the air above may be quiet, the soil fertile, life abundant. The site of trauma becomes the site of renewal. The Earth does not brood over its scars, it builds upon them. In both volcanoes and impacts, we see the same paradox: destruction as creation, forgetting as renewal. The old surface is obliterated so that a new one may form. The landscape's memory resets itself in an instant. It's as if the Earth, overwhelmed by the weight of its own history, occasionally chooses to clear the slate completely. In a whisper of magma or a roar of impact, it says enough. Begin again. These moments remind us that the planet's calm exterior hides a volatile heart and a vulnerable skin. We live upon a crust only tens of kilometers thick, a delicate shell floating on molten fire. Beneath it, pressures build, gases accumulate, and liquid rock seeks release. Above it, space is full of silent projectiles, remnants of a solar system still restless after billions of years. Between these two realms, the Earth endures, balancing serenity and catastrophe. When a volcano erupts, we see the inner world laid bare. When an asteroid strikes, we see the outer world intrude. Both reveal how thin the boundary truly is between stability and chaos, and both remind us that forgetting on this planet is never gentle for long. Consider the Deccan Traps again, a vast region in India where lava once poured across the land for hundreds of thousands of years. Imagine standing there during that time, rivers of fire stretching to the horizon, smoke darkening the sky, continents trembling under the weight of molten rock. Entire ecosystems disappeared beneath that inferno. The geological memory of the surface was erased, sealed beneath basalt flows, thicker than skyscrapers. And yet, when the eruptions ended, life returned. New soil formed, new species emerged. The land healed itself, the amnesia was temporary, but it gave the Earth a chance to start anew. Or think of the craters on the Moon. Unlike Earth, the Moon has no atmosphere, no erosion, no tectonic renewal. Every impact it has ever suffered remains visible, a static record of violence. The Earth, by contrast, is a creature of change. It buries its craters, melts them, recycles them. It refuses to remember every blow. Its memory is curated, selective, alive. It chooses which scars to keep and which to release. There is a strange mercy in that. The volcano and the meteor are brutal, but their aftermath is fertile. Volcanic ash enriches soil. Impact craters become lakes, habitats, cradles of life. Forgetting, even when sudden, gives way to creation. The planet's violence is also its imagination. Perhaps that's why we find volcanoes both terrifying and beautiful. They are living metaphors for the Earth itself, restless, emotional, unpredictable. They remind us that beneath the calm fields and cities there is still fire, and meteor impacts remind us that the sky is not just a ceiling but a door, one that sometimes opens. Together they form the punctuation marks in Earth's story, the exclamation points and full stops in an otherwise slow, drifting narrative. Without them, the planet might become static, its energy trapped, its surface dull and unchanging. These sudden forgettings shake it awake, forcing evolution, renewal, and transformation. To the human mind, these events are cataclysmic. To the Earth, they are simply part of its breathing. A sharp inhale, an explosive exhale, a pause, and then calm again. It forgets suddenly, but it always remembers how to rebuild. If we could speak to the planet in those moments of eruption or impact, if we could listen beneath the thunder and flame, we might hear it whisper with a kind of weary grace, "I've carried too many layers, too many stories. It's time to clear them away. Don't fear the fire. It's only my way of remembering how to begin." And when the smoke clears, when the molten rock hardens or the crater fills with water, the Earth opens its eyes once more. The surface is changed, the details gone, but the story continues. A new page, clean and warm, ready for another chapter. Volcanoes and impacts, the sudden forgetters, are proof that even destruction can be creative, even amnesia can be alive. They are the punctuation between epochs, the shattering and reshaping of the world. Every flow of lava, every crater in stone, every thunderous burst of fire and light is a reminder that our planet is not static, but dreaming, always dreaming, sometimes violently. And as it dreams, it whispers through smoke and stone, forget quickly, remember slowly, begin again. Extinction and life, the erasure of biological memory. There are silences in the history of Earth that feel almost holy. They arrive like pauses between breaths, after long eras of abundance, when the planet suddenly stills and the chorus of life falls quiet. For millions of years, creatures thrive, evolve, and fill every possible niche. Forests reach skyward, Seas bloom with color, wings and fins and roots and eyes explore every form of being, and then without warning it ends. Whole worlds of life vanish erased as cleanly as chalk from a board. This is extinction, the planet's most powerful act of forgetting. If geological memory is written in stone, biological memory is written in living tissue, in genes, in cells, in the slow inheritance of form and instinct, passed from one generation to the next. But life's memory is fragile. It depends on survival, on continuity. When extinction comes, that memory collapses, the thread snaps. The accumulated knowledge of millions of years, every adaptation, every experiment, is lost to silence. The Earth, once again, wipes the slate clean. Perhaps the most haunting example lies deep in the Permian period, around 25-2 million years ago. It was the end of an age so full of life that the continents themselves seemed crowded with motion. Vast forests stretched across Pangaea, filled with insects that hummed like mechanical choirs, amphibians the size of crocodiles, and reptiles that would give rise to future dynasties. The seas were teeming corals, brachiopods, trilobites, ammonites, all thriving in the long calm of a planet that had grown comfortable with its own vitality. And then, almost inexplicably, the Earth turned the page. Over a span of only a few 100,000 years, a blink in geological time, 90% of species vanished. The Permian extinction, the Great Dying, erased nearly all marine life, most land dwellers, and entire families of organisms that had persisted for hundreds of millions of years. Coral reefs disappeared completely. Forest burned, the air thinned, the oceans soured, and the chain of life unraveled. What does it mean for a planet to forget on that scale? To lose not just species but entire languages of biology? Imagine every color vanishing from a painting, leaving only gray. Imagine every instrument in an orchestra ceasing at once, leaving one faint note trembling in the air. The Permian extinction was that kind of silence, the hush after a symphony that has no encore. And yet, the Earth did not end. It slept. For millions of years, life's memory lay dormant, buried in the few surviving species, small reptiles, hardy plants, microbial pioneers. They were the genetic embers, left glowing in the dark, carrying within their DNA the faint echoes of what had come before. When the world warmed again, when the air cleared and the seas recovered, those survivors began to write anew. Evolution picked up its pen and began another chapter. The memory of the old world was gone, but the capacity to remember, to live, remained. In this way, extinction is not only destruction but renewal. The Earth does not forget to punish or to weep. It forgets to begin again. Each extinction is a reset of biological memory, a cleansing of tangled pathways that have grown too crowded, too fragile, too narrow. Life re-emerges stronger, stranger, more inventive. From the ashes of the Permian came the ancestors of dinosaurs, birds, and mammals. From loss came imagination. The fossil record is the faint diary of this cycle, its pages uneven, smudged, and incomplete. It preserves the outlines of lives long gone, the impressions of shells and leaves and bones turned to stone. Fossils are the remnants of biological memory that refuse to fade completely. They are the whispers of species long erased, the footnotes of forgotten symphonies. But even fossils tell an imperfect story. For every one we find, countless others have been lost, crushed, dissolved, or buried beyond reach. The Earth's archives are selective, and the bias of time is merciless. Sometimes when paleontologists brush away the dust from a fossilized skull or a delicate fern, they are not discovering the past so much as interrupting its rest. The Earth had already tucked that memory away, already folded it into its endless sleep. The fossil is a reminder that forgetting is never total, that even the planet's amnesia leaves faint fingerprints. But while fossils hold the visible memory of life, genes hold its invisible one. DNA is the Earth's most intricate language, its code for remembering how to be alive. Every living organism carries in its genome traces of its ancestry, chemical echoes of forms that once were. The genes that guide the development of a human hand, for instance, are related to those that built the fins of ancient fish. In that sense, Evolution is not invention but translation, the rewriting of an old story into a new dialect. And yet, this genetic memory too is prone to erasure. Extinction deletes entire paragraphs from the script of life. When a species vanishes, its unique sequence of genetic instructions vanishes with it, an irretrievable loss of information. Over time, the living world becomes a patchwork of what remains, a mosaic of partial recollections. The diversity of life is the diversity of memory. Every species, a different recollection of what it means to exist. The irony is that the more complex life becomes, the more fragile its memory grows. The intricate interdependence of ecosystems makes them vulnerable. A small change, a shift in temperature, a loss of habitat, an imbalance of chemistry can cascade through the web of life, unraveling entire communities. The Earth has witnessed this pattern many times. The Ordovician extinction, the Devonian, the Triassic, the Cretaceous, each one a reset, each one a sigh of the biosphere as it lets go of an overgrown dream. And through it all, the planet endures, serene in its cycles. To us, extinction feels like tragedy. To the Earth, it is metabolism. Life expands, experiments fills every corner, and then when the balance tips, it contracts, retreats, reorganizes. The biosphere breathes in diversity and exhales simplicity, over and over again. It is a rhythm as old as the world itself. There is something deeply humbling in that realization. We, the living, are part of the current breath, the inhalation of complexity after countless exhalations of extinction. The genes that shape us are survivors, remnants of lineages that dodged annihilation by luck, adaptation, or sheer resilience. We are, in a sense, the memory that didn't fade completely, but our time, too, is borrowed. The Earth forgets slowly, but it always forgets. To imagine extinction as an act of forgetting is to see it with tenderness rather than despair. The planet does not erase cruelly, it clears space for new stories. The Permian event made room for the Mesozoic. The fall of the dinosaurs allowed mammals to rise. Each great loss becomes the soil of future life. The Earth, like an artist, paints layer upon layer, erasing, reworking, never content to stop creating. And yet, the scale of forgetting can be staggering. Think of all the creatures that once lived and are now gone. Trilobites scuttling through Paleozoic seas, giant dragonflies with wings like stained glass, fern forests the size of continents, ammonites coiling through ancient waters, massive amphibians in primeval swamps. 99% of all species that have ever existed are extinct. 99%. The biosphere is a graveyard of ideas, and evolution is its poet, writing elegies in the form of new being. Still, some traces persist, faint but luminous. A fossilized leaf carries the imprint of veins that once pulsed with sunlight. A feather trapped in amber glows with the memory of flight. A strand of DNA in an ancient bone holds the echo of breath. Even extinction cannot silence everything. The planet leaves breadcrumbs, as if reluctant to forget entirely. And maybe that is the secret. Earth forgets, but never completely. The genetic code of life passed through survivors ensures continuity even amid erasure. After every extinction, evolution begins again, guided by the remnants of what came before. The old genes recombine, mutate and awaken in new forms. Memory reemerges disguised as innovation. The Earth erases its lines, but the ink seeps through. The emotional truth of extinction is paradoxical. It is both the end of everything and the beginning of something unimaginable. The same event that extinguished the trilobites opened the path for fish to dominate. The disaster that ended the dinosaurs set the stage for humans. From the viewpoint of time, extinction is not the closing of a door, but the rearrangement of the house. The lights go out in one room only so they can be lit somewhere else. Perhaps the most profound realization is that life, despite its vulnerability, is astonishingly persistent. After every great dying, it returns. The Earth may forget the forms, but it never forgets the desire to live. That impulse, the spark of self-renewal, is its deepest, most indelible memory. Even in the darkest aftermath, amid ash and silence, that spark endures. Microbes find niches in the ruins, plants reclaim the soil, animals evolve to fill the empty spaces. The world remakes itself over and over as if compelled by an ancient promise. We like to think of memory as something fragile, something that can be lost forever. But perhaps true memory lies not in preservation, but in repetition. Life's memory is the act of living again. Each species, each generation, each breath is a rehearsal of all that has ever been. The DNA in every cell is a refrain, muted, altered, but recognizable. The earth may forget the lyrics, but it remembers the tune. So when we speak of extinction, we are really speaking of transformation. The biosphere sheds its old shapes and tries on new ones. What disappears in one form survives in another, diffused through time and matter. The atoms that once formed the bones of extinct creatures now live in us, in the air, in the oceans. Nothing is truly gone. It has only changed address. In that way, the planet's amnesia is not cruel. It is creative. Extinction is the Earth's way of clearing its palette, of beginning the painting anew. It forgets what was, but it never forgets how to begin again. The rhythm of loss and rebirth is the heartbeat of the biosphere, the music of an old planet still learning to sing. If the Earth could speak of extinction, perhaps it would not sound mournful at all. Perhaps it would speak gently like an elder explaining the necessity of rest. I do not erase to destroy. I erase to renew. What you call death, I call memory in motion. The life that was will return, changed, wiser, ready. And so it does. From each extinction, life rises again, simpler at first, then richer, more diverse, more daring. The Earth's capacity to forget ensures its capacity to evolve. The silence after the great dyings is not emptiness, it is the deep inhale before another creation. The fossils that remain are only hints, echoes of what was once loud and alive. The genes that survive are embers, carried forward into new forms. Between them lies the truest form of memory, not the memory of detail, but the memory of possibility. And we, living in this brief green moment of the planet's long story, are part of that inheritance. We are the sum of forgotten worlds, the latest verse in an eternal poem. Someday, perhaps, we too will vanish, our cities turn to dust, our bones pressed into future stone. The earth will fold us into its silence, as it has done with everything before. And then, when the time is right, it will begin again, new life rising from the old, fresh memory born from oblivion. The planet will whisper, as it always has, in the language of wind and tide and leaf. Forget so that you may remember differently. Sleep so that you may wake renewed. Life will come again. The impact on science. The seekers of the Earth's memory. There is a peculiar kind of romance in the work of scientists who study the ancient Earth. They are not merely researchers, they are memory hunters, dreamers with drills and microscopes, trying to coax whispers from stone. The planet has forgotten most of its past, and yet they persist, searching the dust for the faintest clues. Every grain of sediment, every fossilized shell, every layer of mineral becomes a sentence in a book that is mostly missing. The Earth is there patient, half asleep, half secretive, its memories buried deep beneath the surface, and science is the act of gentle archaeology upon its soul. To seek the memory of the Earth is to face resistance at every turn. The planet hides its stories well. Its crust shifts, melts and remakes itself, swallowing entire chapters. The seas recycle their flaws every 200 million years. The continents crumble and rebuild. The atmosphere erases traces of what once was. For every fossil unearthed, 1,000 more have been dissolved. For every preserved rock, an ocean of molten stone has erased the evidence. Scientists work within these fragments, like archivists sifting through the ashes of a burned library, piecing together the narrative of a mind that refuses to recall its youth. The challenge begins with the rocks themselves, the physical memory banks of the world. A geologist might stand before a cliff and see, not stone but time itself, layers upon layers of sediment, each representing a vanished world. By studying their textures, colors, and chemical signatures, scientists can read the conditions under which they formed. Red bands speak of oxygen-rich atmospheres, dark shales whisper of ancient seas. Yet even these layered witnesses are unreliable narrators. Many have been folded, tilted, compressed, or baked by later events. Their sentences are crossed out, their words rewritten. To read them requires not only patience but imagination. This is where the art of geology becomes poetry disguised as data. The scientist must reconstruct whole worlds from crumbs, analyzing isotopic ratios in zircon crystals to infer the age of a rock, examining trapped bubbles in ice cores to measure the breadth of ancient air, studying magnetic minerals to trace the drifting of continents. Each clue is a faint echo of a moment long gone, but when combined they begin to form patterns, rhythms, and stories. And yet, the closer one looks, the more the Earth seems to resist being known. Its surface may seem stable, but its heart is restless. The processes that give it life, volcanism, tectonic motion, erosion deposition, are the same forces that erase its memories. The rock cycle is both the creator and destroyer of evidence. To understand the Earth's past is to chase a moving target, to reconstruct a face that constantly reshapes itself. One of the most valuable tools in this quest is the rock core, a slender cylinder of stone drilled from deep within the crust. These cores are the time capsules of geology, each one a vertical cross-section through millions of years. By examining the composition of each layer, scientists can infer the temperature, pressure, and chemical conditions of long-gone environments. In ocean drilling projects, cores pulled from the seabed reveal climate fluctuations, volcanic ash layers, and even microscopic fossils that tell of entire ecosystems. But these cores are also heartbreakingly incomplete. Many layers are missing, washed away, or compacted beyond recognition. Each core is a fragment of a memory already half erased. Sometimes the search for Earth's past feels like listening to a damaged record. Scratches, skips, long silences where the music should be. Scientists can sense that something once played there, but the sound has faded. The isotope ratios in an ancient mineral may whisper of heat and pressure, but reveal nothing of the creatures that lived above. A fossil may show form but not color, bone but not behavior. The deeper we dig, the dimmer the light becomes. Fossils, in particular, are the Earth's rarest and most fragile memories. They are miracles of preservation, improbable coincidences of chemistry and circumstance. For every animal that ever lived, the chance of becoming a fossil is infinitesimal. Most life dissolves into the soil, its atoms recycled into new forms before it can leave a trace. Those few that endure do so because of extraordinary luck, buried in fine sediment, protected from oxygen, replaced atom by atom with minerals. The result is a ghost made solid, a memory you can hold in your hand. And yet, even fossils are cryptic. They tell us what existed, but not why. They show us shapes, not souls. A skeleton can suggest how an animal moved, but not how it dreamed, or what it feared. In the language of geology, emotion is always missing. Scientists must imagine it, guided by anatomy and inference, translating stone back into story. Every reconstructed skeleton in a museum is a hypothesis, a memory reassembled from fragments and hope. There is a humility in this kind of science, a quiet acknowledgement that we are always dealing with partial truths. The farther back in time we reach, the more uncertain our grasp becomes. The earliest rocks, the Hadean relics over 4 billion years old, are few and cryptic. They contain no fossils, no visible life, only chemical signatures, ratios of isotopes that hint at oceans, atmospheres, and the first whispers of stability. From these traces, scientists build entire narratives: the cooling of the crust, the emergence of water, the slow dawn of habitability. It is detective work at a cosmic scale, with evidence so faint that even the planet seems surprised you can read it at all. And yet, we try. We drill, we measure, we simulate, we build models that stretch across billions of years, compressing eons into computer code. We send probes into space to compare Earth's history with that of Mars and Venus, searching for echoes of our own planet's youth. We study meteorites, those ancient travelers, as if they were the fossils of the solar system itself. Every discovery deepens the mystery, sharpening the paradox. The more we learn, the more we see how little remains. The Earth, it seems, does not give up its memories easily. It keeps them buried, folded into metamorphic rock. dissolved in the mantle, erased by fire and water. And when we ask it questions, it responds in riddles. A geologist might examine a zircon grain and find that it formed 4.4 billion years ago. But what does that mean? Was there water then? Was there life? The grain will not say. It is an ancient witness with a perfect poker face. But perhaps the challenge is part of the beauty. Science thrives not on certainty but on pursuit. The act of searching for the Earth's memory is itself a dialogue, a collaboration between curiosity and patience. The planet hides, we seek. It erases, we reconstruct. The difficulty is not a barrier, but an invitation, a test of how deeply we can listen. Sometimes, the Earth seems to tease us. A drill core reveals a sudden shift in isotope composition, hinting at a forgotten climate catastrophe. A fossilized leaf shows stomata patterns that reveal fluctuations in atmospheric carbon dioxide. A thin band of iridium in a clay layer tells of a cosmic impact long before memory began. Each discovery is a whisper from the depths. You are getting closer, but you will never know it all. There's humor in this too, cosmic, patient humor. The Earth, ancient and wise, watching us scurry with hammers and magnifying glasses, might well chuckle softly to itself. Dig if you wish. I've forgotten more than you'll ever find. And yet, we keep digging, because even fragments of memory are enough to sustain wonder. Science, in this sense, is not just the study of the Earth. It is the Earth's own attempt to remember through us. We are the neurons of its curiosity, the thinking parts of its deep living body. When a geologist holds a piece of ancient rock, or a paleontologist cradles a fossilized shell, the planet is remembering itself through human hands. Our search is not external, it is reflexive, an act of planetary self-reflection. The Earth looks inward, through our eyes, to recall what it once was. This idea that science is the mind of the planet awakening is almost poetic, but also profoundly literal. The carbon that makes our neurons was forged in ancient stars, recycled through the crust, dissolved in oceans, and taken up by living cells. We are the outcome of geological and biological memory combined. When we study the past, we are made of the very materials we study. The observer and the observed are one. Still, even this self-reflection has limits. The oldest records, the true beginnings, remain locked away, buried in the planet's molten core or ground, to dust and forgotten tectonic collisions. For all our ingenuity, we will never recover the first days of the Earth, the exact details of its birth, the unrecorded epochs when oceans formed and continents first blinked into being. Those moments are beyond reach, erased too thoroughly for recall. But maybe that's fitting. Even memory, to stay alive, must have mystery. And so the scientists continue, drilling, measuring, decoding, arguing. They reconstruct climates, trace extinctions, model tectonic shifts, and study the isotopic fingerprints of long-vanished atmospheres. Their work is meticulous, methodical, but beneath it lies a sense of awe, a recognition that they are peering into the dreams of a world that has mostly forgotten itself. Each discovery is both revelation and reminder. We are uncovering the faintest traces of a memory that resists being known. To study geology is to practice patience measured not in years but in eons. It requires faith that meaning can emerge from fragments, that the faintest clues can be enough. It is also an act of empathy, listening to a being too vast to speak clearly. The scientist kneels before the stone not as conqueror but as translator, trying to render the silence of minerals into the language of understanding. And what does the Earth whisper in return? Perhaps only this: keep looking. The story is still unfolding, because in the end, the pursuit of memory is not about reaching a final truth, but about sustaining curiosity. The planet will never reveal everything. It will always keep some secrets buried, some chapters unwritten. That elusiveness is what keeps science alive. The challenge is not a barrier, but a beacon. So the scientists persist, those seekers of deep time. They listen to rocks, to ice, to the subtle chemistry of the air. They map the invisible, reconstruct the vanished, and dream of the first dawn. The Earth may forget, but they do not stop asking. Each hammer strike, each core sample, each microscope slide is an act of faith. That memory however faint, can be found again. And if the earth could speak to them, those patient seekers with dusty boots and tired eyes, it might say, with a gentle kind of amusement, "You search for my memories, but you are my memory. Every question you ask is a fragment of what I once knew. Keep searching. I am remembering through you." And perhaps that is the deepest truth of all, that science is not just the pursuit of knowledge, but the continuation of the Earth's own attempt to remember itself. Every measurement, every fossil, every core is part of a long conversation, a dialogue between forgetting and discovery, silence and wonder. The Earth forgets, yes, but through us it dreams of remembering once more. The philosophical lesson, the fragility of memory. There is something tender, almost human about the way the Earth forgets. It is not a violent erasure, not an act of cruelty, but a quiet yielding, a soft acceptance that everything in time must dissolve. The planet's memory is made of stone and water. Yet even these are temporary. The mountains crumble, the oceans swallow, the wind carries the dust of ancient worlds and scatters it across new shores. The Earth has no archives that last forever, no library untouched by time. Its memory is fragile, like ours, perhaps more fragile still. And yet, this fragility is what allows the world to continue. The Earth forgets not because it is careless, but because it must. If it remembered everything, if every layer of stone remained, if every species endured, the planet would become heavy with its own past. It would be buried under the weight of memory. Forgetting for the Earth is a form of mercy, a way of clearing the ground for what's next. From this there is a lesson for us. We too are creatures of memory, yet we cling to it as though permanence could save us. We record, document, preserve, fearing the loss of what we love and know. We write histories in ink, carve names into stone, upload our doubts into digital clouds, all to resist the eroding tide of time. And still we forget. Entire civilizations fade into myth. Languages vanish. Monuments crumble back into dust. We are reminded, again and again, that remembrance is not the same as immortality. The Earth teaches us that forgetting is not the enemy of existence, but part of its rhythm. The world renews itself by letting go. Each erasure, each extinction, each eruption, each burial is followed by creation. What was lost becomes the foundation for what is to come. In that sense, memory and impermanence are not opposites, but partners in an eternal dance. The fragile makes room for the new. The new is born from what was fragile. If we look closely, this pattern exists within us as well. Our own memories are built on impermanence. We forget most of our days, most of our thoughts, most of our moments. The ones that remain shape who we are, but even they shift, blur, evolve. Our memories are not stone. They are rivers, always moving. To remember perfectly would be to stop changing, to become a monument instead of a life, like the Earth. We need our forgetfulness to stay alive. Still, there is a quiet sorrow in knowing how much slips away. The Earth has lost more than we can comprehend. Entire continents, species, atmospheres, oceans, histories. Its earliest days are gone beyond recovery. Its first breaths dissolved into myth. And we, tiny creatures living upon its skin, mirror that loss. Our cultures rise and fall. Our stories stretch across centuries and then vanish. Our achievements turn to relics and dust. Every generation inherits a smaller portion of the original song. The melody endures, but the verses fade. Yet perhaps what matters is not what is remembered, but what is reimagined. The Earth never recreates exactly what it has lost. It invents anew. No forest returns in precisely the same way. No ocean repeats its pattern. Even the species that evolve after extinction are not resurrections, but reinventions. The planet understands what we sometimes forget. Memory's true value lies not in replication, but in transformation. To carry the spirit of what came before into something that has never been. That is remembrance in its most creative form. We humans have our own version of this process. Every story we tell, every piece of art we make, every idea we pass on is a form of recreation. We do not preserve the past perfectly, but we interpret it, breathe new life into it, turn memory into meaning. History, after all, is not a frozen archive. It is a living narrative, constantly rewritten by those who remember. Like layers of sediment, our collective story grows and shifts, shaped by what we choose to keep and what we must let go. The fragility of memory, then, is not a flaw, but a feature. It allows growth, reinterpretation, forgiveness. If nothing ever faded, there would be no room for understanding to evolve. The same truth that governs geology governs consciousness. Permanence is stagnation, impermanence is life. Still, it takes humility to accept this. We want our works, our words, our names to endure. We build monuments and archives as if to defy the Earth's example, but even as we do, the planet gently reminds us through wind, through erosion, through time, that endurance is not the same as meaning. The pyramid will crumble, the book will decay, but the ideas, the beauty, the spirit behind them will find new vessels, new expressions, just as the Earth's lost continents become the seeds of new ones. Our forgotten works become the soil from which future minds will grow. In this way, the fragility of memory becomes a source of grace. To live knowing that everything changes is to live more fully in the present. The earth has no need to cling. It is content to flow from form to form. We too might learn to hold our memories lightly, not as possessions but as gifts, transient, luminous, enough. Perhaps this is the most profound lesson the planet offers, that memory is not about permanence, but participation. We are each part of a continuous remembering, a relay of consciousness and care that stretches across time. Every story told, every kindness shown, every observation written down becomes a bridge between what was and what will be. The earth forgets the details, but through us, it remembers its wonder. Consider this. Every time we study a fossil, write a history, paint a landscape, or simply pause to marvel at the world, we are adding to the planet's self-awareness. The earth forgets in stone, but remembers through mud. Our awareness, fragile and fleeting though it is, becomes the newest layer of its memory. We are the witnesses who give it voice. The act of remembering, the attempt itself, is sacred, even if the details fade. And so we keep trying. We build libraries, museums, satellites, stories. We teach the next generation to remember, not because we expect permanence, but because the act of remembering connects us to everything that came before. It is a gesture of gratitude, an acknowledgement that we are temporary stewards of an ancient dream, even if our records someday dissolve. The effort itself matters. It is what makes us human. It is what makes us part of the Earth's own process of renewal. The planet's forgetfulness teaches us gentleness. It asks us not to fear loss, but to trust in continuation. What fades in one form reappears in another. The rain that erases mountains will later nourish forests. The stories that vanish in one age will be reborn in another, under different stars. The Earth's great forgetting is not emptiness. It is movement, transformation, preparation for creation. This awareness calls for humility, but also wonder. To realize that all things pass is not to despair, but to recognize the miracle of their existence in the first place. Every life, every era, every thought is a temporary constellation, a momentary alignment of matter and meaning. The fact that it does not last forever makes it no less precious. Indeed, it makes it more. We are, each of us, keepers of a fleeting flame. Our memories, personal and collective, are fragile as the Earth's crust, yet they shine brightly for their brief time. To live wisely is not to cling to permanence, but to tend that flame with care, to pass it forward before it fades. The earth forgets so that it can begin again. We remember so that we can learn, change, and find meaning in the cycle. Between forgetting and remembering lies the essence of being alive. In the end, perhaps the most human thing we can do is what the earth itself does: to hold on and to let go, to remember deeply but not possessively, to cherish the past without being trapped by it, to know that even if our stories fade, their echoes will ripple outward, shaping futures we will never see. The fragility of memory is not a curse, it is a kind of truth. It reminds us that existence is not about permanence, but participation. The earth participates in the great flow of becoming, erasing, and renewing without hesitation. We too are part of that flow, writing our brief verses into a poem that will never be finished. So what should we remember? Not every detail, not every number or name, but the rhythm, the way the world changes, the way life adapts, the way beauty returns after loss. To remember that forgetting is part of the pattern and that renewal follows every ending. To remember that we are temporary and that this is what makes our moments sacred. If you listen closely, you might hear the planet whisper through the rustle of leaves, through the sigh of the tide, through the hum of the wind across stone. Remember gently, forget gracefully, both are necessary. And perhaps, in that soft voice there is both comfort and challenge. The comfort of knowing that nothing is truly lost, and the challenge of living meaningfully in a world that will one day forget us. What will you write into the sand before the tide comes in? What small memory will you leave behind for the earth to carry? Not to last forever, but to shimmer briefly in the great ongoing story of renewal. For the earth's wisdom is simple, and its lesson eternal. To forget is to make space for what is new. To remember is to honor what was. Between them lies creation itself. And so, we come to rest at the end of this long, quiet journey, across vanished continents, through buried seas, beneath layers of forgotten stone. The Earth, our dreaming planet, has lost so much of itself along the way, 80% of its memory gone, folded under new crust, melted, eroded, or swallowed by the ocean's slow hunger. Its history lies mostly in silence, in fragments, in whispers, caught between grains of sand. And yet, what remains is enough to tell us everything we need to know that forgetting too can be beautiful. The earth remembers in traces, an ancient zircon glinting in granite, a fossil pressed into shale, a ripple of iron frozen in time. Its surviving memories are incomplete, but enchanting, like fragments of a song whose melody we almost recall. From these remnants, we reconstruct the great story. Continents rising and sinking, species blooming and vanishing, oceans breathing in and out, across eons. The Earth's past is a dream, half remembered, vivid in places, blurred in others, always unfinished. Perhaps that is why the planet feels so alive, because it does not cling to permanence. It forgets to make space for wonder. Each act of erasure becomes an act of renewal. Volcanoes bury the old and birth the new. Oceans consume and then cradle, mountains fall asleep as valleys, only to rise again as peaks. The Earth's memory is not a record, it is a rhythm, a lullaby of transformation. Imagine the planet as a being in a long, slow dream. It murmurs, shifts, turns over in its sleep. It forgets where it has been, yet continues to move, to breathe, to create. The continents drift like thoughts across its mind. The seas sigh like memories dissolving into mist. To forget for the earth is to live freely, to flow forward without regret, without the burden of what once was. And we, small and luminous creatures upon its surface, are part of that dream. We listen to the earth's murmurs through the hum of the wind, the whisper of rivers, the heartbeat of waves against the shore. We gather its fragments, its fossils, its stories, trying to make sense of the great forgetting. But perhaps the lesson is not to restore its memory, but to share in its peace, to understand that renewal requires release, and that beauty can exist even in what is lost. Every stone, every wave, every breath of air carries the quiet wisdom of a planet that knows how to let go. The earth teaches without words that endings are beginnings in disguise, that even amnesia can be creative, that to live is to change, and to change is to forget just enough to begin again. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, imagine this planet beneath you, not as a sphere of rock and fire, but as a great, dreaming mind. Picture it turning slowly, wrapped in clouds, humming softly to itself. The mountains exhale, the oceans stir. Deeper below, the crust shifts in its timeless rhythm, the earth dreams on, and we, its children, dream within it. What do you think the earth dreams about? Perhaps it dreams of its own beginnings, molten and wild. Or perhaps it dreams of the distant future when it will be something else entirely, renewed and reimagined once more. Maybe, like all dreamers, it simply drifts through memory and forgetting, savoring the music of its own becoming. If you close your eyes, you might hear it whisper, not urgently but tenderly, as if through the warmth of the ground itself. Forget a little, remember softly, keep dreaming. So rest now, under the same sky that once watched the first dawn and will someday watch the last. The earth will keep turning, humming its quiet, eternal song. Let your thoughts wander like drifting continents, your breath rise and fall like the tides. You are part of its dream, and it is part of yours. If you found wonder here, if you felt the pull of this great, forgetting planet, share its story, whisper it forward. Let others dream of it too. And as you do, let the night take you gently. The earth will hold you in its soft remembering. Good night, traveller of deep time. Sleep well in the arms of the dreaming earth.